Tekking new series tumble! Hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking and Barry back again, and yes, we are starting a new Bleach discussion series today. We are finally doing the thing that a lot of people have requested. We're going to be tackling the lieutenants of... Hold on. The Lieutenants of Bleach. That's right. And to kick us off, just like we kicked off the Espada series, we got a sponsor today. A Bleach-themed sponsorship, nonetheless, for Bleach Immortal Soul, the mobile strategic RPG. There's been some new additions since the last time I talked about it, so let's dive right in. So the first new big thing about the game is that they are introducing 4 new chapters into Bleach Immortal Soul, all focusing around the fake Karakura Town arc and Aizen's invasion. And because we're focusing on that particular arc, we also got a lot of new characters that you can unlock and play as. All the Visors are going to be available, as well as all of the Espada and their respective Resurrections, as well as a slew of other Arrancar that appear in that particular arc, which are quite a few. We also have Hollow Ichigo here being added to the card pool. Say hi, Hollow Ichigo. He says hi. As well as, if you have 7 daily logins, you will be able to unlock Nell 2's child character. In addition to that, because Aizen's rolling up to town, we also have a bunch of new game modes. The Defend Karakura Town game mode and the Touring game mode are basically like endurance rounds. Aizen shows up, sends wave after wave of Arrancars at your team. Depending on how far you get certain rewards for that. So that's the Defend Karakura Town and the Touring game mode. There's a season pass available now, where every single time you log in, you get like a list of different requirements, things you have to do. And if you complete them, then you get, rewards for that. There's some improvements to the game systems itself, such as squad level up rankings. The leaderboards now give different rewards and more options to, make the leaderboards, as well as a new level cap system to progress through the story mode campaign of the game itself. In addition to that, if that's not enough, we also have a special code that you can enter. It's going to be in the description below. And if you enter this special code from my video, you will receive 2 gacha tokens, 50 soul jades, and 5,000 gold! 5,000 gold! So yeah, whether or not you're already a diehard fan of the game, or if you were thinking about just getting started with it, check out those links below and that promotional code to get yourself some extra rewards. Also keep in mind that this game is officially licensed by TV Tokyo, so they're allowed to use the Bleach soundtrack as well as stills from the anime, all that good stuff. Alright, so with that all being said now, let us dive into something that I have been hotly requested to do for, many years now, honestly. Ever since I talked about Bleach on a weekly basis back when the manga was still running in Shonen Jump, I've gotten requests to do this. In the last few years now, I've done a series on the GOTEI 13 Zanpakuto. Earlier this year, we did a series on the Espada, as well as the Fullbringers. A lot of people have requested the next discussion series I do for Bleach has to be for the lieutenants of the GOTEI 13, right? Right? Yeah, and also, we are on the eve of 2021, right? It is December of 2020, and next year is apparently when the Bleach anime will be coming back with the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. With everything going on right now, I think it's reasonable to expect maybe a delay. Maybe it's not going to come out exactly when it was originally planned. I don't know anything more than you do. I'm hoping it still comes out in 2021. Maybe we have to wait until early 2022, but I'm crossing my fingers. I'm hoping 2021 is going to be the year. So with that said, let's start off. And I'm pretty sure it's apparent just by looking around my room and seeing the title and the thumbnail of this video. Yeah, obviously we're gonna be talking about Nemu Kurotsuchi today. No, today we're gonna be starting off with the 9th Squad Lieutenant SHUHEI Hisagi. And you know what? That wasn't an easy decision to make. I mean, looking at all the lieutenants we have right here, there's a lot of them that would have made a good starting off point for this series, right? A few that came into my mind immediately, well, there was Renji, of course, because Renji was the first lieutenant to appear in the story, and he's part of the main cast, so maybe I should have started off with Renji. Also, we have Izuru over here. I mean, Izuru's also very prominent. Rangiku... Let's be honest here, I kind of wanted to start it off with Nemu or Rangiku, if we're being straight up, but no, I decided to go with SHUHEI first, okay? Because SHUHEI is such an interesting character. He's a cool character. I mean, just looks awesome. Which, by the way, I debated whether or not to draw a 69 on my face for this video. You know, how I typically do that. Like, if a character has, like, a tattoo or something, I'll do that. And I just, for some reason or another, I just decided against it today, right? But at any rate, cool-looking character, and interesting just in the fact that you get the idea, reading through the entirety of the Bleach manga multiple times, like I have, Kubo really wanted to do more with SHUHEI. There's a lot of bonus material found throughout Bleach that focuses on SHUHEI. There's a light novel right now focusing on SHUHEI. You see this? Do you see this? A light novel with Shuhei on the cover. Shuhei is like Batman in this. He's like a detective going around the freaking Seirete, and that's just in the first book here, right? Obviously, there's other books in the Camp for Your Own World series. I haven't read those yet, but just in the first one, he's pretty damn cool. Plus, he's got a motorcycle, right? I feel that Kubo's like, man, Shuhei Hisagi, right? I'm gonna draw this character. He's gonna have a really tragic backstory. He's gonna have deep, like, emotional connections to, like, Tozen and his philosophy on what it means to be a Shinigami, what it means to fight, what it means to pick up a sword. I'm gonna make this really deep and cool character. And the sad thing is, throughout most of Bleach, he really has to take a back seat to a lot of this stuff, right? The most prominent moment for him in the manga, anyway, is easily when he fought against Tozen at the fake Karakura town battle, of course. You know, his battle with Findor was neat as well because he got to reveal his Zanpakuto Kazashini, but the most emotional we get is that moment where he has to go up against his former captain, his former teacher, mentor, whatever you want to say, and you know, he has to be the one to actually kill him, right? There's been a lot of stuff with Shuhei in pretty much every filler arc. In fact, I want to talk about the Bount arc coming up here in a second because that's something interesting with Shuhei in the Bount arc I definitely want to address. And of course, in the Zanpakuto filler, we also get the introduction of Kazeshini. We get to see how Shuhei, you know, how he deals with his Zanpakuto made manifest. So that's a lot of interesting extra stuff in the fillers, and you could tell definitely that maybe Kubo had a hand in that. Kubo maybe went to the animation department and was like, hey, you know, maybe focus on Shuhei a little more. I really want to do a lot more stuff with Shuhei, and I just haven't had a chance to. There was that little bonus chapter that we got in the Thousand Year Blood War arc there, where we have Shuhei visiting the graves of his former classmates that died in that hollow attack when he was helping to defend Momo and Izuru and Renji back in their training days at the academy, right? And so we see him going to the graveyard and paying respects, and his other classmate is now working for the 4th squad, and he's there, and they have a little bit of back and forth about how their lives have changed and everything. And his former friend, well, is still his friend, but his former, like, classmate was, like, praising Shuhei, like, well, you know, I decided I couldn't fight, I couldn't hack it, so I went to the 4th division where it's just a medical division. But you, Shuhei, you're amazing. You're the lieutenant of the 9th division. You're freaking second in command. That's crazy. And after Tozen left, and before Kensei was reinstated as a captain, you know, Shuhei was the effective leader of the 9th division, and they did fine under Shuhei's leadership there. But I think, you know, Shuhei just didn't want to become a full-fledged captain. He felt like he wasn't ready for it yet. He didn't deserve the title yet. So when the Vizards returned to the Seirete, you know, when, you know, Shinji became the 5th squad, rose 3rd, and, you know, Kensei went back, he took up, you know, the position as captain of Squad 9, and then began to kind of teach Shuhei, which is great, because Kensei was the one that inspired Shuhei all those decades ago, 100 years ago, during Turn Back the Pendulum. So let's just start with that. It's a brief moment in Turn Back the Pendulum, but it's something that Kubo definitely focused on. It was a moment where we see Kensei in action as the captain of Squad 9, showing up and defeating a hollow with his Tachikaze. Okay, so he slices apart a hollow that was attacking Shuhei and his friends, and Shuhei, you know, he's just a little kid at this point living in the Rukongai, so he looks up to Kensei as this towering epic figure, you know, chiseled abs, and on the chiseled abs he has the 69 tattooed. 6 because the kanji for 6 appears in Muguruma, and also 9 because, you know, he's the captain of the 9th division. So that was the origin of the tattoo. So if anybody's ever curious why Shuhei's walking around with 69 tattooed on his face, like, it's funny, because, you know, 69 is like, that's the reason, okay? Also, I think Kubo really liked it just because of the symmetry with it. Like, even upside down, it's still the same number. It's like something like parallel with that. I think that's something that, like, Kubo just liked to draw, right? On top of that, throughout the years, Shuhei has gotten some battle damage. During the hollow attack when he was at the academy, he's gotten the scars on his face. He has this blue, I originally thought it was a piece of tape. I just thought he just took a piece of blue tape, like freaking painter's tape or something, and just taped it across his face. But no, that's a tattoo, from what we understand. As well as he's got these 2 like bracers. He's got like a bracer around his arm here, as well as like a choker on his neck. And we just thought like he wears those to look cool. Later on, during his fight with Findor at Fake Karakura, we find out those things are actually very, very practical. They were probably cooked up by the 12th Division. They are actually miniature like bombs, like explosives. So whenever Shuhei's like clashing, like sword locked with like an opponent, he could be like, you're a strong opponent. Ah, yes you are, Lieutenant. Yep. sure am. Click, and then the bracer, releases from his arm and then it flies towards his opponent. And then as soon as he unlocks it, it's like, oh crap, boom! It's like a flash bomb right in your face. I'm assuming the one on his neck does that as well, but maybe that one's a little bit more dangerous, you know? There are some scenes in the anime where the one on his neck looks like, right here, it looks way more like a tattoo rather than an actual, like, choker or a necklace or something, but I'm assuming that's what they are, considering it's the same basic design. So that's cool. That shows, like, practicality and a little bit of ingenuity, right? Like, you imagine the 12th Division is there cooking up a bunch of crazy gadgets all throughout the Seirei. I'm sure there's a lot of Shinigami that are a little bit more traditional, like Byakuya, for instance. You know, they're just like, we don't need any advanced technology or anything like that. You know, Shinigami have fought with a Zanpakuto, Kido, Ho-Ho, Hakuda for centuries, millennium. They fought like this, we don't need anything, new, convoluted, some kind of crazy technology like Mayori's always pulling out of his sleeves, right? Another various stitched up parts of his body. But you can tell Shuhei, he's ingenuitive. He's just sitting around thinking, I'm the lieutenant of Squad 9, so I gotta be able to fight. When worse comes to worse and push comes to shove, I gotta be the one on the front lines to fight and defend my squad mates and all of the Seirei against Hollows and anyone that would do it wrong, okay? Like Ryoka and all that shit, okay? So he's like, I got my sword, but we find out in Fate Karakura, Shuhei doesn't really care for his Zanpakuto all too much. He'll go into his release form if he has to, and it's not even so much like Ikkaku, where Ikkaku can't show his Bankai because he literally doesn't want anybody to see. Like, Ikkaku would literally die before he revealed his Bankai to anybody else in the world, So, in that situation, it's a lot more extreme. But with Shuhei, it's like, alright, I really don't like to go into Shikai, but if it's looking like I'm going to die, if I've busted out every other trick I've had, if I can't defeat them with my sealed sword, if I can't beat them with Kido, or with my fancy explosive bracers or whatever, I gotta go into Shikai. I gotta go into, Kazashini. That's just the best option I have, right? But considering he's not a fan of his sword, you could see him sitting around thinking, like, maybe there's something the 12th Division can give me, a little bit of an edge in battle. Anything works. Like, anything that would even give me an extra second to, like, distract my opponent and launch a sneak attack or whatever, harkening back to what Shunsui used to say. Shunsui always said, it doesn't matter about, like, honor or anything, and it's even exemplified here in the Can't Fear Your Own World. I'll just read that really quick because it's at the beginning of the book. It's sort of like a like a beginning passage here from the Shinigami Academy handbook here. Don't seek aesthetics in battle. Do not seek virtue in death. Don't believe your life only belongs to yourself. If you really want to protect something, attack the enemy from behind. That's some hardcore, like, way of the ninja shinobi shit we're dealing with right there, okay? That's, like, something that is printed in the textbooks of the Academy. When you was like, okay, you want to learn how to become a Soul Reaper, you want to get a Zanpakuto and go into Shikai and Bankai and use Kido and Ho-Ho around and all do that crap, that's, like, the first thing you gotta learn, okay? This is, it is, in a sense, it's honorable. You are tasked with defending the Seirei, you are tasked with defending the souls and the Soul Society, and to a greater extent, yeah, the Zero Squad is responsible directly for the Reo, but you're like the vanguard unit, you have to defend the Soul Society to the point where even the Zero Squad doesn't even get involved, right? All that stuff is very honorable, and you could add some chivalry to that and stuff and things, but do not forget, at the end of the day, we're fighting against Hollows, we're fighting against these essential demons coming from another dimension, and, anyone that would do the Soul Society harm, you gotta finish them off. You gotta make sure that place is protected, because if the Soul Society falls, then that's not just, a few buildings fall, that's like, a universal problem, right? So it's like, you do what you gotta do. You do what you gotta do. You gotta sneak up from your enemy, use, like, an explosive, like, flash bomb right in their face and jump behind them and shing! Just, like, stab them right through the freaking back and rip out their heart. You gotta do that, man! You do it! Alright, you do it if you gotta win. If that means that you can win the fight, sure. I mean, there's a lot of Shinigami. We even get this with the Visors. We even got this with Love and Rose when they were fighting against Stark. Now, keep in mind, at this point, Love and Rose have been Visors for 100 years. They defected from the Soul Society, but they still had that, like, code of conduct. It's like Shunsui, barged in on their fight with Stark, and Love was kind of pissed off by that, and Shunsui was just kind of like, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. Because the second you get into war, both sides are in the wrong, so what does it matter at this point? You do what you gotta do if you really want to be a Shinigami, right? And so that's that kind of style there. So you can see that kind of exemplified a little bit in Shuhei as well. He's just like, all right, I'll do what I have to do. Now, it's a little bit more tough for Shuhei because of his dislike for his Zanpakuto and everything, and this overwhelming fear that he has for the blade and for battle, but we'll get into that, all right? But yeah, that's probably the origin of, that was like a whole tangent just for me to explain and kind of justify the origin of Shuhei having flash bombs on his arm. It's like, it was probably a lot more simple than that. I don't think Shuhei went all deep and philosophical. He was just like, hey, Mayuri, can you make me explosives to strap? And he was like, whatever, there you go, Shuhei, I'm working on a giant bug that can observe people from 10 kilometers away. Okay, yeah, you keep doing that. Click, click. All right, we're good. Right, okay. So, I want to talk about the Bounty arc a little bit now, okay? Because here's the thing. During the Soul Society arc, when Shuhei is introduced, what does he really get to do? Not much. Not much. The only thing that I remember Shuhei doing the entirety of the Soul Society arc in any major way is he fights against Yumachika. This over here. He fights against Yumachika, right? There's Shuhei back there, okay? And, that's an off-screen fight, and then it cuts back, and then Yumachika activates Rurio Kujaku, defeats Shuhei, drains his Ryatsu, and does appear at the very end to kind of subdue Tozen. He holds the sword at Tozen's neck and just like, Captain Tozen, why are you doing this? Right, he shows up at the very, very end, but beyond that, not much. We do get the flashback, though. I will say that much. We do get the flashback of Shuhei at the academy, training, Momo and Izuru and Renji into the, the foray in the world of the living, and then the Hollows attack and everything like that. And then eventually Aizen and Gin have to show up to protect them. So we get that scene, too. And that's kind of a setup. But beyond that flashback and beyond Shuhei's off-screen fight with Yumachika, we don't really get much more from that. The Bounty arc actually serves to kind of be more of a proper introduction to Shuhei's character. It's actually kind of weird, because Shuhei is one of the Shinigami sent, I believe, by Toshiro into the world of the living to deal with the Bounty threat. And this happens during when Mabashi with the, Ritse is a doll that, possesses people. So Mabashi uses Ritse to possess Rukia and take her into her Shinigami form and try to attack Orihime. And then, boom, Shuhei arrives at the last second, and he's, all really cool, and he's got the tattoos, he's got the outfit, and he's just like, I'm the lieutenant of Squad 9, Shuhei Hisagi. Ugh, and he's like, what's going on here with Rukia being controlled? And Orihime's like, Rukia's being controlled! And Shuhei's like, alright, well, I guess I'm gonna have to, cut through Rukia to get to Mabashi, essentially, right? And so that's more of a moment there with Orihime, because there's an emotional moment there. It's actually a pretty solid episode when Orihime activates her Santen Keshin and is just, walking toward Rukia as Rukia's firing off so Katsui as she's being controlled. She manages to fight against Ritse long enough to, get back to her senses and be like, Orihime, please, you gotta finish me off to defeat him, you gotta do it, right? And this is crazy. I mean, this is more about Rukia's character here, but that harkens back to, freaking Kaien, right? That harkens back to Kaien, being manipulated by Metastasia and what Rukia had to do, and it's like that brief moment of consciousness she gets where she realizes she's being manipulated by an enemy ability. She's like, you gotta do what you gotta do, Orihime. I had to do it once, you might have to do it too. And Shuhei's there as well, and he, after Orihime manages to use her rejection to get Ritse off, Shuhei's about to attack Mabashi, and he manages to get away, though Ichinose shows up, Maki, and takes him away. And we have a moment with Shuhei there where, we get a little bit more into his personality anyway, where he's just, willing to, all right, I'm not happy about slicing down Rukia, because she's a fellow Shinigami, right? She's a fellow member of the GOTEI, but if that's what I have to do in order to, my orders were to come to the world of the living and exterminate Bounce. I am a soldier in a war, basically, and that was my orders to do that, and I might have to cut down Rukia in order to get there. I'm gonna have to do that, I guess. And then so Orihime kind of stopped him, and she's the one that managed to save Rukia with her ability. But we get a little bit of more introduction to Shuhei there. Not much, but a little bit. So at least the Bound arc served that. I'm a pretty big fan of the Bound arc. The Bound arc wasn't that bad. It's easily not one of the worst fillers in Bleach, so I can go with the Bound arc. I feel like it goes on a little bit longer than it has to, but it is a pretty solid as far as filler arcs go. And so, I mean, we get some other fillers along the way, but the next big thing we see from Shuhei is the fake Karakura Town arc, because that's when he goes up against Findor, and I think Kubo was just having a field day with this, because Kubo is finally like, yes! Finally, I get to use Shuhei, right? Like, there's no more bullshit, no off-screen stuff. I don't have to focus on other people or whatever. I am going to throw Shuhei at one of the Arancars, one of Baragon's Fraction, Findor Carius, and his Pinza Gouda was his Resurrection. He's the crayfish lobster-looking dude. And he's like, all right, this is going to be a full battle. I'm going to get to show off his Shikai. I'm going to get to show off more of his personality, get some character development. By the way, he has flash bombs on his freaking, arm. That's going to be cool to see. He does that the whole 9 yards. Also, Kubo has a lot of fun with Izuru as well. In those pillar fights, I mean, Yumachika's was cool. Ikaku's was mostly off-screen. But Izuru and Shuhei's were obviously the highlight of that part of the arc, okay? And so Findor shows up, and he starts fighting against Shuhei. And Shuhei does, like, he has Kido, he uses his sword, he uses the explosives, but it gets to the point after he reveals his Resurrection, like, okay, Shuhei's gotta do it. He's trapped basically in a sphere of water, like water prison jutsu from Naruto, and he's like, alright, I gotta do this or I'm gonna get shredded by, like, these aqua jets that Findor can fire off. I just realized Findor's ability, not completely dissimilar to Haribel's Tiburon. Not completely different there, but at any rate, Shuhei is in this water sphere, it's being crushed, razor water jets, and then you just hear it. It's just like, reap, Kazashini. Side note, I love the sound effect that Kazashini makes. Every time Shuhei throws it, or anytime he picks it up, it makes the same sound of like the I love that sound effect. Okay. But anyway, he activates Kazashini, which, in terms of, Lieutenant Zanpakuto's, we have Renji's over here. We got Zabimaru's over here, which is pretty cool. It's pretty unique, but it's a sword that's got a bunch of teeth on it, okay? We got Haineko, Rangiku's, that just turns into Ash Cat. Chojiro's is just a rapier. Marechio's just a ball and chain, right? Izuru just makes a reverse fish hook, basically. Kazashini is 2 scythe blades, actually 4, because there's like 2 blades on each scythe, connected by a chain that Shuhei uses to spin around and attack the enemy, like with tornado attacks, and he can, like, slice their head off and just cut them to pieces and just shred them with these twirling death blades that he swings around on chains. Is that not the most cool / kind of emo ability, right? Like, if you had Ukiura use an ability like that, I could kind of see that, right? So Shuhei's not quite that emo as Ukiura. We find out later, because the whole dual Zanpakuto thing has always been something that's like, there's no like dual Zanpakutos, or dual Zanpakutos are very, very rare, or something like that. So, Shunsui has like the only one that's like a dual Zanpakuto, right? Ukitake's is connected by the cable, so his Sogyo no Kotawari is a little different, and I'm always throughout Shuhei is like, well, Shuhei has a dual-bladed sword as well. No, we actually find out later that it's actually not the scythe blades that are the core of the Zanpakuto, it's actually the chain. So the chain is actually the core of the Zanpakuto, so that's really his Shikai right there in the chain. And once we get to Shuhei's Bankai here in a little while, which, yes, Shuhei's Bankai has been revealed in the Can't For Your Own World novels. We know what it is. We have some sketch art of it. And it's being released on Brave Souls pretty soon as well. That's coming to Brave Souls. So, yeah, that's some pretty cool stuff we're going to be dealing with here in just a second. We're going to talk about his Bankai, but we're still on the Shikai, all right? So, the Shikai, he goes into it, and before he starts, like, fighting and going ham on freaking Findor, he pulls up the blade and he just, like, shh, and it just, like, holds it up to his eye, and he's just like, I'm not a fan of this. I don't like this sword. And Findor's like, what are you talking about? And he's just like, well, the thing works and everything. I mean, in 5 seconds, I'm gonna shred you into bloody chunks, but, I just don't like the shape of it, Look at this thing. It looks like something that's meant to reap lives. And then he kind of intimidates Findor with that, and Findor's like, what? And then Dun 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 dun. You know, cue up the awesome soundtrack. It's one of my favorite Bleach soundtracks. I don't even know what that soundtrack is actually called because I've just had it in my phone as, you know, Hisagi versus Findor for like 10 years. I've had it in my phone, like every phone like updated. It's like, yeah, that's the Hisagi versus Findor theme. Dun 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 dun. You know, like, oh my god, right? Okay, so little bit about Shuhei's philosophy here. I used to shit on that scene though. I used to like, oh, it was a cool scene. It was badass. But I used to always say, dude, Shuhei, what is your job description? What are you? A Shinigami. Alright, what does Shinigami literally translate to? God of Death. You're a god of death! Your job is to literally be the Grim Reaper, and you're sitting there with your scythe blade like, it looks like something that's meant to reap lives. I don't like it. And I used to say, that's kind of weird. But you know what? You know what? I take that back, because when you actually start to think about it, that's not a good criticism of that, alright? Because here's the thing. First off, I know we think, when we think of like the Grim Reaper, or like a Soul Reaper, or whatever, we think of like the spooky demon skeleton in a cloak and with the scythe blade that's like, you know, he appears over your bed when your time has come! You know, it's just like it brings down the scythe and like rips your soul out. Very, very gruesome, very, very violent. But I want you to think about something here. Shinigami and the whole concept of how this living and death and Konso thing works in Bleach, not exactly the same exact way that works in a lot of other depictions throughout, you know, history and media and stuff like that. Death in Bleach, or, you know, soul reaping, doesn't necessarily involve violence. Violence and death a lot of times are the same thing, but they're not mutually inclusive. They're not the exact same thing, violence and death. And I think that's what Shuhei was getting across here. His job as a Shinigami is, yes, to, you know, fight hollows and defend the Soul Society. But also his other job is to Konso souls and ferry them along into the Soul Society. Like, that's the overall job of what Shinigami do, right? And so the thing that bugs Shuhei, that, like, irks him to his very core, is despite the fact that that's the overall job of the Shinigami, right? His personal sword, his Shikai, Kazeshini, is a sword that takes the form of these dual scythe blades that look like they are meant to just rip off people's heads or just shred them from a distance. It's a bloody, gory weapon that has very violent implications, and Shuhei is like, I can imagine him looking at that like, this is supposed to be the reflection of my soul, this is supposed to be what I am on the inside, like this super violent, like, torture device, basically. So when you look at it from that perspective, I kind of understand Shuhei's reasoning there. You can kind of understand, like, I really don't want to use this all too often, right? Later on, during the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, we find out the whole thing, like, the blade is literally you. It is literally an extension of your own soul, just made manifest in a slightly different way, in the form of a sword, in the form of the Shikai and the Bankai and the Zanpakuto spirit. But the Zanpakuto spirit is not something different from you. Whatever form that soul, the soul of the Zanpakuto takes, is a reflection of your own soul, whether it be overt or whether it be something that you're kind of trying to keep down in the subconscious. That is you, so you better get used to it. So that's like the true, not necessarily the true form of Shuhei, but another aspect of his soul and his personality that he's not fond of, that he kind of tries to repress, but it is there, okay? And so that kind of is the reason why he doesn't want to go into his Shikai very often, unless he's really pushed to the brink and he has to do it, okay? And that's why he pulls up his sword and he's just like, you know, look at this thing. Look at this freaking thing. It's like a freaking medieval torture contraption, right? Like, you'd attach somebody to this chain and, like, slice their damn head off or something. Like, this is freaking brutal. Now, I do know how to use this thing like a freaking surgeon, so we're about to get into a fight here, Findor, in, like, just a second, but god dang, it's just really, really grisly, you know? Dun 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 dun. He's, you know, spinning this thing around like crazy, and he's like flash stepping behind Findor and clashing with him, and just, my god, it's a beautiful, beautiful like way, at least he dances with the sword, right? Dances with Kazeshini. And so this, he defeats Findor. And that ties back now, we eventually get to the battle between Tozen, Komamura, and then Shuhei showing up, bloodied at this point. He does fight against Aion, and Aion just kind of snaps the chain like it's not even a big deal, right? And then so he almost gets crushed by him until Yamamoto has to show up and save him. But, you know, he recovers a little bit, he gets healed up a little bit by Izuru, and then he shows up to fight against Tozen alongside Komamura. He uses Kazeshini to, like, trap Suzumushi, and he's like, Captain Komamura, please allow me in on this this fight. And Komamura looks over at Shuhei, and he's still bleeding and probably has a few cracked bones from Ion, but he's like, all right, Shuhei, I mean, he's your former captain. I mean, it's your mentor. I mean, you pretty much have to be part of this fight. Like, whether or not you're about to pass out from massive blood loss, you gotta be here for that, right? And so it was very, very brutal for Shuhei to deal with this, because it's like, what did Tozen tell me that was even true? What was part of his own philosophy, and what was something he just made up, right? And it's very, very brutal in this fight, because Tozen takes, you know, as he progressively gets more and more hollowified, to the point where he gets into that insectoid, hollow form, and he allows him to see, and he like, I can see! And he just starts like insulting people. Like, he looks over at Komamura, I'm like, damn, Komamura, you're ugly! You know, you're uglier than I ever imagined you could be, right? And it's not only that, but it's also on Shuhei as well, and it's just like, this is the man that taught him the way of the sword, basically. When Shuhei was made a seated officer in Squad 9, he was going to hand it over to Tozen. He was like, I can't do this. I need to hand in my title as a ranked officer. I just can't do it, and I'm not ready for it. I'm too scared in battle. And Tozen and him had this like really deep heart-to-heart kind of conversation, where Tozen was like, you know, you need to fear the blade. Anyone that just dives into battle like a crazy maniac with no fear whatsoever, you know, that's not the way a warrior should fight, you know, relating to Kenpachi Zaraki. You could definitely tell now why Tozen and Kenpachi had like very different philosophies there. But yeah, Tozen's like, you know, those that go into battle fearing the blade, those that go into battle, and like every time you have to draw your sword, you know that you could die, you might have to take a life, you might get injured, those that you love might get injured, you know, you have fear every time you draw your blade. That's normal. That should be the way that a warrior should fight, and kind of in a way that fear keeps you sort of grounded, you know? So that's kind of what Tozen was like. That's the life lesson that Tozen taught him. But now, in this insectoid form, you know, he's a hollow and he's on the other side, you know, Shuhei's like, do you even believe in this stuff anymore? Or are you just bullshitting with me the entire time? Or like, what's going on with this, right? And so it's a very, very tough battle, and Komamura gets injured. Shuhei gets knocked down multiple times, and it is ultimately, though, Shuhei that deals the finishing blow to his former captain. And the way that Shuhei kills Tozen is probably, and we've had a lot of brutal finishing moves in Bleach throughout the story. You can comment yours below. You know, we've had a lot of brutal finishers. I'm going to get one. I have to actually mention one involving Yamamoto here in a little bit, but at any rate, he goes and he sneaks up behind freaking Tozen when he's in this insectoid hollow form, and because he can see, it's like his other senses are dulled a little bit because he's so obsessed with seeing. It's like sensory overload because he's been blind his whole life, and he just takes Kazeshini, rams it into Tozen's head, his hollow mask, and it's just like, you're not really Tozen anymore. Like, trying to justify, like, you're not even Captain Tozen anymore. The real Captain Tozen, like, the old Captain Tozen could have dodged this. Rape Kazeshini. And then, shh, inside of Tozen's head just gets pureed like a freaking magic bullet. Just like, just gets the blade, this dual-bladed scythe, which the end also of it kind of spiky, just, and then he seals it again, shoot, and then Tozen just falls, and you get a little bit of a final moment of pathos with Tozen, where he goes back into his regular form, even though his, like, entire throat is just ripped to shreds. He could still speak because of hollow powers, and kind of bullshit, but whatever. He's sitting there, and he's looking at Shuhei, and they kind of have one more heart-to-heart, and, you know, Shuhei's like, Captain, Shuhei, and then he just explodes. Which, how the hell did Tozen explode? I think it was implied, at least inferred, that Aizen was the one that caused him to explodify. But, yeah, how did that happen? Aizen just, like, glanced at Tozen, he just exploded into a bloody mess. And then Shuhei's like, Aizen! Komamura's Aizen! And then at that moment, that's when Ichigo shows up. Aizen! Everybody kind of went to Karakura Town to kill Aizen, but nobody wanted to kill Aizen. That was one of those moments where it's like, everybody really wanted to kill Aizen, right? And so Tozen, he dies, and, like, basically in Shuhei's arms, kind of. It's just a pile of blood at that point, but Captain? Oh, no! Right? Oh, man. So, yeah, and after that point, I mean, they all try to fight against Aizen together, but, you know where that goes at that point there. So, that was the moment Fake Karakura, I think Kubo really vented with Shuhei's character. He's like, okay, I've been wanting to do a lot of stuff with him for so long. This is finally the opportunity I have. I'm going to throw everything at it, right? You know, Shikai and everything. The 1,000-Year Blood War arc. He doesn't really do anything throughout Fullbringer arc. He doesn't really show up at all until, I think he probably shows up in the background, but that's it. He's mentioned by Renji. He's like, oh yeah, he brought a motorcycle back to the Serite, but that's it. 1,000-Year Blood War arc. Shuhei. Do you guys remember, I'm a big fan of The Simpsons. Do you guys remember the episode of Treehouse of Horror? I think it was Treehouse of Horror 5. It was the Halloween episode where it was the Shining, you know, the Shining parody of The Simpsons. Okay, this is going somewhere. Just bear with me. There's a running gag throughout that episode that is hilarious, where in every segment, in the 3 segments in that episode, Groundskeeper Willie progressively gets killed. Like, he tries to help the Simpsons, and he gets an axe in the back in every single segment. It's like a running gag. And so at the very last segment, there's this thing where Groundskeeper Willie comes out, and he's just like, I'm here to save you, kids, don't worry! And then Principal Skinner comes out with an axe, and just, ah! And this is like the 3rd time in the episode this has happened to poor Willie, and he's just like, oh, I'm bad at this, and then just drops. That's basically Shuhei in the last arc. Unfortunately so. We did get that one extra bonus chapter, kind of extra thing that Kubo drew with Shuhei visiting the graves and everything. We get a scene with Kensei that's pretty emotional. But in terms of actual battles, well, let's go through this. The first battle that Shuhei really has is he fights against Sternritter O, the Overkill, Driscoll Bersi. Fights against him. Gets beaten down pretty bad. Yamamoto shows up. He's like, it's alright, Shuhei. I got this. Foosh! And just incinerates Driscoll where he stands. So that's also a brutal finisher right there from Bleach I wanted to bring up. But Shuhei, it didn't look like he was going to be able to win against Driscoll there. So he has to, like, he's like, alright, I didn't win that one. The next time he's in a serious fight, I believe, is against Pepe Wakabrata, Sternritter L, the Love, where he gets manipulated by Pepe to attack Byakuya, so Byakuya has to knock his ass out, so he can no longer be used as Pepe's puppet, essentially. So that sucks. And then finally, he shows up, he makes it all the way to the Soul Palace, he's like, alright, this is finally my chance to do something, and gets sniped by Lilia, down. And the rest can't stop to help him because they're kind of on a moment here. Like Shunsui and the others, they have to keep moving. So they do. And, yeah, we do get to see Shunsui in the 10-year time skip at the very end of the arc, where Rangiku brings up, like, hey, did you learn Bankai at all? And Shuhei's like, I learned Bankai like crazy. I just didn't get a chance to use it. I mean, come on. And that's it. That was all. I mean, maybe Kubo knew, like, maybe, like, the beginnings of maybe Can't For Your Own World were gonna happen at that point, so it's like, alright, there will be more opportunities for Shuhei. There will be more opportunities for Shuhei to strut his stuff, for him to basically become the main character of the story, which in this he basically is. He takes the, like, Ichigo doesn't really appear so far as, that I know of in this part anyway. I'm sure Ichigo appears at some point, but this is Shuhei's story. This is, like, him being the protagonist, okay? So if you are a Shuhei fan and you haven't picked up Can't For Your Own World, go pick it up. I've done a video where I discuss the first half of this part of the book. I have to go back and I have to still finish this. Just things getting away from me. But, just the part that I have read, very Shuhei-centric, so go check it out, right? And so, unfortunately, we don't get a lot of action with him in the final arc of the story in the manga, but I'm thinking when the anime comes back, I'm just feeling we're going to get some more Shuhei. I feel like that's going to be a requirement, especially on Kubo's part. Like, alright, we want to come back and bring 1,000-Year Blood War arc into the anime scene. We're going to design these Sternritters. We're going to do everything. We gotta do something with Shuhei, guys. We have to do something with Shuhei. That's cool. So you know what? Extend the fight with Shuhei and Driscoll. Have Shuhei fight against one of the Sternritters. Have Shuhei fight against a lot of the, like, the lower level Soldat. Just give something with Shuhei, right? Have some moments with Shuhei. Maybe, just maybe, show off his Bankai. Maybe we'll see it in the anime. I'm hoping we do. Or we could do the anime, like the anime is the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, and then we could have Can't For Your Own World animated afterwards, like a bonus. If you're gonna do the last arc, might as well animate this. I mean, I know it's not that simple. It's just like, yeah, just throw a few extra $1 million to animate that. I mean, I understand it's a lot of money, but you're already here, you're already doing it, just throw that in too, right? You know what I mean? Okay, so, Shuhei's Bankai, as revealed in the Can't For Your Own World novel, is like so. There's some conception arc from Brave Souls. Fushi no Kojo, Undying Hangman's Noose. Okay, that is pretty emo. You got Undying Hangman's Noose. Yeah, alright. But that is a Shuhei ability. Alright, that does, it fits his character. Alright. So this definitely expands upon more of the idea that Kazashini is not the scythe blades, but the chain. Okay? Because Fushi no Kojo literally takes the appearance of just chains. Alright? It traps the opponent, very kind of harkening back to Tozen's Suzumushi, Suishiki, and Makorogi, where it creates that giant black blimp that kind of like traps everybody in. Similar effect to this. Creates a giant ball of chains, a dome chain. And Shuhei and his opponent are trapped inside of this chain dome, wrapped up in chains. I'm going to be using chains a lot coming up in the next few, next few minutes, so just bear with me. So they're in a chain dome, surrounded by chains, wrapped around chains, okay? These chains effectively drain the user's Ryatsu, but not in the same way that like Ruryo Kujaku does. Every time Shuhei or his opponent tries to injure one another, tries to cut somebody or, bleed them out or cause them to die, the chains use the Ryatsu to heal the wounds immediately. So, Shuhei activates his Bankai, Fushi no Kojo. And then the enemy gets wrapped up in chains, and Shuhei gets wrapped up in chains, and the enemy's like, is like, what the hell is this? And maybe Shuhei would be like, this is my Bankai. I'm not particularly fond of it, but the effect is, shut up! And then the enemy's like, I'm gonna kill you! Goes to, like, slice Shuhei and, like, hits him, like, right here, and just blood just splatters all over Shuhei, and the enemy's like, ha ha, I win! And then the wound just heals. And the enemy's like, what? Shut! And then the Ryatsu from both of them is, I think, taken into a pool, like a collective pool, to heal all the injuries immediately, right? That's the effect. Overall, eventually the Ryatsu is going to run out, and then both of them would die. So that's the effect. Activate it, chains, drain Ryatsu, you literally start just freaking slashing and crashing each other like crazy, blood splattering everywhere, the wounds heal, slice more, wounds heal, and you just keep that up. You just keep that up, the hack and slash, until your Ryatsus are both drained and you both die at the same time. Hence the Hangman's Noose part of the Bankai, right? It's also a very applicable ability whenever Shuhei wants to get an enemy to their self. Like, I can't let this guy go fight against the others. I'm going to use my Bankai to stop him right there. Because no matter... It's basically supposed to be used against an opponent that has a crazy high amount of Ryatsu. That's really beyond Shuhei's league. So it's like the ultimate equalizer. Like, the scales are being balanced here. Hashwolf shows up. Did somebody say balance? I'm like, yeah. Basically, it's like that. Where it's like, I know I can't defeat you under normal circumstances. So basically, this Bankai evens it out, sucks away both of our Ryatsus, and we get to the point where we're basically, like pulls it all together in one thing, and then just divides it by two. So all your Ryatsu, all my Ryatsu goes into the Bankai, divide that by two, and then we just hack and slash each other until both of our, the pool gets emptied out, and then we both die. And then that's the effect of my ability. So it makes sense why Shuhei probably doesn't want to use it very often. I'm sure he can also disengage the Bankai before it gets to that point, just to distract the enemy long enough, but still probably something he would not want to do until he gets to the very end. But if he had to do it as a Shinigami, as a member of the Seireitei, as the GOTEI 13, if he had to do it, if he had to go that far to get to the point where he fought against Lilia Barrow or Herald Valkyrie or Pernida during the the final arc, if he had to do that, and he had to go into Bankai, and he had to do the point where it's like, all right, I'm going to have to die in order for my enemy to die, and that's what I have to do, Shuhei would have done it. He would have done it. Because he is a true warrior. He is a true member of the GOTEI 13. Lieutenant Shuhei Hisagi. So yeah, I feel like this has been a long video, and I still have some stuff about Shuhei I haven't even addressed, honestly. But I'm going to end it there, at any rate. This is going to be a very interesting series, I can imagine. If this is a character that, growing up and watching Bleach, I never thought I'd be able to talk about for as long as I have. But Kubo has given us so much extra material in data books, and we get light novels, of course, not just by Kubo, but Ryoga Narita, that wrote Can't For Your Own World. We get so much extra stuff from Shuhei. So I will say this: if you are a fan of Bleach, I'm saying this at the end, I should have opened up with this, but if you're a fan of Bleach and you've only watched the anime and you've only read the manga, especially if you've only watched the anime and that's it, and you're thinking of Shuhei as nothing more than just, oh yeah, Shuhei, that's just that random lieutenant in the background, go and read the expanded universe material involving Shuhei, because there's so much of it. He's such a more in-depth character than how he's portrayed in just the anime, right? But okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. Kicking off the series. Who am I talking about next? All right, we got to decide. I guess I'll do a thing where I decide the next one in, each video, okay? Kind of like how I did with the GOTEI and stuff, with the Zanpakuto and the Espada series. I really want to do Rangiku or Nemu because boobs, but I will refrain from that. You know what? Next video is going to be Chojuro. I really want to talk about Chojuro. I love Chojuro's character, the stuff we find out about him in the final arc, his Bankai, the lightning, Gonryu Riku. That's a character that needs to have more expansion, all right? I'm talking about Chojuro Sasakibe next time, Lieutenant of Squad 1. So yeah, catch you back here next time, everybody. Once again, thanks to Oasis Games for the sponsorship, and go check out those links and that promotional code below for Bleach Immortal Soul. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tekking, signing out.